Today on the Taste with Lizzy T show, I'm going to be showing you how to make fried pork chops. I'm going to teach you the techniques to get just a beautiful golden brown crispy crust and how to have the juiciest pork chops. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do to make fried pork chops is make the breading. So I'm going to take 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup of cornstarch. Don't skip the cornstarch. It really is what gives a nice crisp crust and a golden brown color to your pork chops. 2 teaspoons of paprika, 2 teaspoons of salt. You can use a little bit less if you'd like. 1 teaspoon of black pepper and 1/2 teaspoon of ground dry mustard. Now I'm just gonna whisk this together a little bit. And that's all it takes to make the breading for the pork chops. Next, I'm gonna pour some buttermilk, about 1 cup, a little bit more than 1 cup of nice thick buttermilk into a second container. We're gonna take the pork chops, dunk them in the buttermilk, and then dunk them in the flour for a beautifully crispy crust. As you can see, I have 4 pork chops here. This makes enough breading to make 6, maybe even 8 pork chops. But I have 4 here today, and they are about 3/4 of an inch thick. If you want to get a thicker pork chop, you can. It'll just take a little bit longer to cook. We like to use 3/4 inch pork chop just because it doesn't take quite as long to cook. Now I'm gonna put it over on a cutting board. This gets a little messy, but that's okay. Your fingers will wash up. If you'd like to, if you don't like the mess on your fingers, you can use a fork and dip it in the milk and then into the flour if you'd like. You'll want to plan about an hour to make the pork chops. They don't take an hour to cook. They don't actually take an hour of hands-on time. But what you're gonna do after you get the pork chops breaded is just take them and put them into the fridge or let them set to the side for about 30 minutes. You want to allow that time for the breading to just sit on the pork chops. It's gonna get a little bit gummy, but that's what helps the breading to stick to the pork chop instead of falling off into your skillet. So after you've let the pork chops rest for 30 minutes, it's time to get that skillet heated up. You'll want to use canola oil or vegetable oil, or you can use even lard to fry them in, or peanut oil. Use an oil with a high smoke point. That way you won't get that weird smoky burning smell on your pork chops. Put in enough oil so that the oil is going to come up about halfway on the pork chops. You want to allow the oil to heat until about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. If you make sure that skillet is heated and that oil is really hot, your pork chops won't stick to the pan. So we're gonna take the pork chops here and put them right into the oil. You don't want to overcrowd the pork chops, so I'm only gonna put in 3 pork chops for this skillet because it's a little bit smaller. If you have a bigger skillet, you can easily fit 4 pork chops in. Allow the pork chops to sizzle and cook for about 4 minutes before you flip them. They're beautiful golden brown. The key to having juicy pork chops is cooking them until they're 145 degrees Fahrenheit inside. So you can use an internal thermometer and just test them. Test them in a couple of different spots. Make sure you get the thickest spot. And these are reading okay. To keep them crispy, I like to put a wire rack down with some paper towels underneath to catch any oil drips. And then it just helps that breading stay crispy instead of getting soggy on a plate. There they are, so beautifully golden brown. They look amazing. Let's get them on a plate. Be sure to allow the pork chops to rest for just a couple of minutes after you take them out of the skillet because that oil is hot and these pork chops are going to be really hot. I like to serve pork chops with traditional mashed potatoes, green beans. You could do corn casserole, buttery rolls, whatever you like. You can of course serve leftover pork chops by slicing them up and putting them on a salad even, or on a sandwich. Delicious. Anyway, you have it. So I'm gonna get one of these pork chops on a plate. Look how delicious that is. This smells so good. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check back next week for another video. Like, share, leave us a comment telling us what you think of fried pork chops, and we hope to see you again next week.